Alright, in this video we're going to investigate how we can programmatically interface with inputs. So I've got a very basic UI here that has got a label, it has a div at the top and then an input. Got another div that we're going to be using to output information to. So the very first thing that we want to look at is how do I actually change the value of the input. So I have some form of data and I want to push that data to the UI. So first thing we need to do is first get a hold of all the components that we're going to be using. So let's say that our input is document.query selector, and we'll put the input in there. And then while we add it, we might as well get our label input. So label input equals document.query selector. And this is hash label input. So now we have our components to use. So let's say I want to put the value here called hello world, right? So I can say input.value, which is a property on the input element, equals hello world. And just like that, I can put hello world onto the screen. So when I have data coming in and I want to put that data on the screen, this is how you could do that. So let's say this was instead on an object. So let's say const object equals, and I have a field in here that says value, and the value is hello world. Obviously I can just go obj.value and it gets the same results. But that's only one way of it. So I've got data that I can push to the screen, but how do I know if the input changed and how can I update my object again? So what we can do here is say, okay, well, input dot add event listener, and so an input has an event listener called change. So I can say when you change, I want to fire off an event. So I'm just doing a quick and dirty here. And I can say, okay, well, when the input changes, I want obj.value to be equal to the input's value property that I got. So the input can act like a getter and a setter. I can set it with a new value, and I'll show in the UI, and I can get whatever was typed in here using the value property as well. Alright, so now I can say label input dot text content is equal to obj dot value. So when I change this and I tab out, you can see that that value gets updated, and then that gets updated. And so let's just go through what we've had a look at. One, a input has a property on it called value that I can get the value from or set it, which will change the value on the screen. There's a function, or there's an event called change on the input that I can listen to, and whenever the value changes here and I tab out of it, this gets called, where I can then take the value that is on the screen and go and update my data model. So in this way I can keep my UI in sync with what my data is doing, and I can keep my data in sync with what the UI is doing.